currently have an 0-5 record. What is your prediction for this game?
I hope we can beat them by more than 50 plus. I mean, I hope we were planning to do that last week, but
go back to the goalkeeper, but an interception here, and she's able to net it. Heading to her already.
Hello everyone, I'm Nathan Osler and welcome to The Big Hit. That's Danny and that's Joey over there in the corner, and we're here to talk some sports. So first of all, how are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you, Joey?
Pretty good. I just had spaghetti benders. That's why I had to push this meeting a little bit, half an hour later, because obviously I was eating because it was my friend's birthday. So, yeah, having a good time.
Well, first major story we're going to dig into today is, of course, the MLB lockout. And today is, of course, the last day before the league might start canceling games, as the players want to be able to start in March, but they also want 4 weeks of spring training. And today, February 28th, as of now, during this filming, there has not been a deal. So do you think there's a possibility, I should say, of this ending today? Or are we going to see games canceled?
You know, they're not getting any ground. I think the last meeting I heard that the players walked out in absolute disgust.
Yeah.
So if they're still absolutely beefing, like they're not getting anything done. They're not making any ground. We still might not see baseball at all this year. We might be lucky to get it in a month.
Yeah.
So that's my stance on it.
So, update me on why there is a lockout. Exactly, why are they locking players out from playing?
The CBA agreement came out. It went up. So last time this really happened was 1994. I remember the World Series got canceled that year. It was crazy. Drove fans crazy. Everyone hated it. And of course, it's coming back now. And there's been a lot of speculation if like Rob Manfred's the reason this is happening, which a lot of people have not really liked him. He's like grown to fall down to, you could say, the worst commissioner in all of sports. Because it seems like Gary Bettman in the NHL was the worst for a lot of people, but reasonably after the Houston Astros scandal happened, with none of those players being punished for cheating, Manfred went right down the rails and everyone started despising him. And now they have the CBA agreement coming up, and players want to stop the manipulation of service time with prospects. So basically what that is you can call up and call down the minor leaguers at certain times. And if you call them up by a certain date, you wouldn't have to re-sign them again to a major contract deal. And that's what the players want to fix. They want to make sure these minor leaguers are getting the respect they deserve. They want to make sure they're getting paid enough, because you and I were talking before this, some minor leaguers are living off of like food stamps and stuff and sharing rents.
Yeah, they share apartments in Bradenton, Florida, you know what I mean?
Really? I mean, it's not the major leagues, but it's still, minor leagues is still, you know.
They get paid less than like teachers and stuff, like high school teachers, minor league players.
It's crazy because there was a whole story coming. I think it was the Baltimore Orioles last year. They were like the first team to actually pay all the minor leaguers the same thing or make a base contract. So it's really interesting. They're not really paid that much, but then it looked like the lockout would have ended a couple weeks ago, but then the Major League Baseball came out saying they weren't wanting to pay minor leaguers during spring training. That's just crazy. Like, you think you're almost there, then you go out and say we don't want to pay minor leaguers during the spring training aspect. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think they should get paid either way.
Yeah.
Because if they're playing professionally, they should at least get paid like professional athletes.
Yeah, definitely. Going off of this whole lockout thing, they did make a couple new rule changes, though. We're going to get to see the universal DH. We saw it in the COVID season, where the AL was the original league with the only one with the DH. So that's where a pitcher does not have to hit the baseball. The National League players, some of them wanted it, some of them didn't. A lot of pitchers are upset they won't get to hit anymore, of course. Of course, the fans are upset as well because they won't get to see pitchers hit bombs anymore. So, like, the problem with baseball I'm seeing now is, like, it's the purest perspective, the older fans versus the new generation. And that's where a lot of problems are coming from, because you see the older fans are really mad about this. But MLB is trying to change the game with this new DH rule, and personally, I'm a fan of it. But that's really crazy. You're going to get to see more hitting. You're going to get more fans into the sport. But is this going to break the game, do you think?
I think, you know, this goes for everything. Every single old generation is going to hate how everything new is done, regardless of whether it's good or bad. They're just going to hate on the new stuff. That goes for any kind of sport, any kind of interest, music, whatever. I think the old generation kind of needs to learn how to adapt to new things, especially with the new rules. And because obviously it's not going to go back to the way it was. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get more different. So they have to adapt and just deal with it, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have anything to say about that, Danny?
Listen, I remember as a kid, I'd be watching the Pirate games, and when A.J. Burnett would get a hit, it was the greatest thing of all time. Whenever you'd see a pitcher just rake an RBI or even hit a home run, it was the greatest thing. Bartolo Colon's home run. I mean, that's still a meme. It's still one of the greatest baseball memes of all time. Bartolo, that was an incredible moment for baseball and for pitchers. And to take that away, you know, the game, the reason why a lot of people don't like baseball is because it is slow and basically you have, if you're letting the pitchers hit, you have 8 batters because the pitcher, you know, they go up there, they don't want to swing. Most of them don't want to swing. I mean, you have players like Jacob deGrom or Shohei Ohtani, if you want to count him, that want to get up there and they want to put that ball over the fence. But then you have guys like Garrett Cole who get up there and just kind of go it like that with it. Yeah, I mean, so adding the DH, you finally now have 9 batters coming up, and you're gonna be able to adjust lineups differently. And I remember there was a few seasons where the Pirates put Andrew McCutchen, I think, at the 9th spot. Just for some reason they did that, but it's definitely good for the offensive side of baseball and to make the game more fun to watch. But you know, as you said, Joey, the old school people, they're not gonna like it as much. But you know, I like it, but at the same time, I'm going to miss seeing Bartolo Colon hit a home run.
Yeah, definitely. And one of those old school rules that was changed a couple years back was the whole how many batters does a relief pitcher have to face. I don't know if you remember this one. So they changed it. It used to be managers could pull a pitcher after 1 pitch, 1 batter, if they favor a righty versus righty or righty v lefty matchup when it comes to hitter versus pitcher. But the Major League Baseball, they wanted to change it because the game's too slow aspect, like you were just saying. They wanted it to make it so a relief pitcher, when coming in, has to at least face 3 batters. So if they don't even record now, if they get shell-shocked in there, they have to stay in there for all 3 of those hitters. Personally, that's a rule I really like because you're going to get a little speed up. That adds a little bit more strategy with it. You got to preserve these pitchers. But then one of the rules we're seeing now possibly getting added this year, or we saw in the COVID season that a lot of people hated, was the extra inning runner on base, which I think is the stupidest rule they ever made in baseball. You make it to extra innings, and you get an automatic runner at second base. And the only way that works, which is the one thing I did like about this, is it was your last out. So it could be your slowest guy on the field has to be out there. But say it's your top of the order speedster, that's an automatic sac fly. You can bunt him over to third, and then a sac fly scores him in 2 outs. So what do you think about that one? Should that one be removed or not?
You know, I liked it and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
It really depends who you're rooting for. You know, it's one of those things where if it works for you, you love it. But, you know, if you lose a game because of it, then you absolutely hate it. So there's different stances you can take on it, definitely. But personally, I do like seeing you have to work for that win. You know, you don't need these Mickey Mouse runs where you get a free runner on second.
I mean, just don't go to extra innings.
Be
your opponent so you don't have to go to extra innings and you don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, definitely. And we also saw in that COVID season, which I don't think it's returning, is the 7-inning doubleheaders, which was really interesting. So you get 2 games. A lot of fans would get in 2 for the price of 1, which is really nice.
Yeah,
good thing for the MLB to do. But like it's also, you get 2 games done really quick, back to back. You can have 2 different lineups. Maybe some players will stay in there. But that was honestly a really good one. But what the lockout's dealing with now is the whole, should there be a salary cap or at least a salary floor? And that's what these small market teams do not want, I think, because teams like the Pirates, of course, they do not want a salary floor because if you're the Pirates, Bob Nutting, you probably don't want to spend that much money as we've seen in the past. But if you're teams like the Dodgers and Yankees, they don't want a salary cap because they are way over it. The Mets, too. All these major markets are taking advantage of this and leaving the small markets like Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, who even was a small market. You could even consider them a mid or major market now based on the contracts they're giving. These teams are just being left in the dust. So do you think the league should implement at least one of these, and which one do you think it should?
I think perhaps a salary cap. Because that could possibly have a little more fairness and competition within the league. Because that way, like the Yankees or Dodgers don't full on spend millions and millions of dollars getting the best players, while teams like the Pirates or whatever team is left in the dust. That way, they have a certain amount of spending money, and they can only acquire this many of great players. That way, it keeps the playing field a little more level than somebody just like getting the best player and then completely dominating and
Yeah.
just makes it uninteresting.
We just saw like the New York Mets the last 2 years. They're one of those teams with me that I don't really like the most because like they spend all this money, but they never make the playoffs. So you saw they brought in Francisco Lindor, which the thing about baseball I've noticed too, every year they get a new highest paid player. It was Mike Trout for a while. Then out of nowhere, Fernando Tatis passed him. You saw Bryce Harper pass him. Manny Machado was close, and Manny Machado, in my opinion, is really good, but not on the skill level of Mike Trout or any of these other guys. But then you see the whole Francisco Lindor thing come out. He becomes one of the highest paid players, $300 million. He was terrible last season. It took him a whole first half just to hit the ball good. And he's like an all-star caliber player. So then the Mets this coming season, before the lockout started, we saw a lot of teams flurry and try to sign people. They get Max Scherzer, a 37-year-old pitcher. I think it was 3 years. He's going to be making $43 million a year or somewhere around there. That's just overpay, in my opinion. For a 37-year-old man, that's just crazy. And that's just these major markets throwing money, all the money they have, and just taking advantage of this. So what do you think about that?
I mean, who really needs to get paid that much?
Yeah.
Honestly. Because I feel like, obviously, I even think maybe like 10 to 15 million a year is good enough. Like 40 million a year for a baseball player.
37 years old too.
Guy should retire at that age.
Yeah, it might have actually been 43 million overall, like over the course of those three, but that's guaranteed money at least, which is crazy enough to think about.
I do believe obviously athletes need to be paid because they bring so much like revenue to the stadiums and to the owners and stuff. But I don't think that much money is really worth any player.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless he's like a generational like Babe Ruth kind of player. But I don't think he is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And like the Mets this year, if there is a baseball season, they're now going to have Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer at the head of the rotation. What are they going to do with it? Are they still going to make the playoffs, or are they going to miss it yet again? And then we saw the league, speaking of playoffs, they want to have an expanded playoffs with 14 teams, and I was telling you before this, they want to have the number one seed be able to pick who they want to face, which is just crazy to think. So number 2 and number 3, the top 2 other division winners get to pick their opponents, and then the highest remaining wild card out, I think 3 or 4 of them would get to pick their opponent. Do you think that's fair that teams should be able to pick who they want to play? It's like if you have the Dodgers, the number 1 seed, and somehow the Pirates somehow make the playoffs, they get picked first and just get whooped.
No.
Do you think that's crazy, the league even to apply this idea?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because obviously the team that is number 1 seed is going to pick the worst team they can choose from.
Yeah.
What I would like to see is also like interesting is like a lottery type deal.
Yeah.
So you have like you obviously a ball with numbers on it. Pick the ball. If it's 2 seed goes against like I don't know the 3 seed, the 4 seed.
Yeah.
Random stuff. That way it's fair and nobody has an advantage.
Yeah.
But if you obviously if a team like I don't know the Yankees goes against the worst team in the MLB who happens to make the playoffs, it's going to be a landslide and it's not going to be very fun to watch.
What's wrong with a bracket? You know, it's been done throughout sports. It's classic. Why would you want to pick your own teams? I understand that the best teams are going to be able to pick the worst teams, but it's the same thing as a 1 versus, say, in March Madness, a 1 versus 16 seed. It's the same thing. Well, why do you need to be able to pick your own team?
Yeah.
No, keep the bracket. Teams work for their seed.
Yeah.
If a team sucks, they deserve to play the worst team. Prove why you're in these playoffs and you deserve to win. You don't need to. No, I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and that would be horrible for baseball, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And one more final thing about this whole lockout situation. Speaking of the lottery, they want to implement one in the 2023 draft with the worst, I think it was like the worst 7 teams possibly it'd be starting with. So that would include probably our Pittsburgh Pirates, of course. Teams like Baltimore, Arizona, Colorado, the Cubs maybe back into the basement. That gets rid of the idea of tanking with these teams, and Pirates fans are probably tired of the tanking. I know I am. I want to win a championship. I've been waiting. Everyone's been waiting. My dad's been waiting his whole life for this.
How long has it been since they've even been to the playoffs?
Last time they were in the
2015, I
playoffs was
think.
2015. They haven't won a game since 2013.
Seriously?
Yep, they won the wild card and 2 of the divisional matchups against the Cardinals. Lost in a game 5.
2013 was the Johnny Cueto game where everyone
Yep.
was like, Cueto.
Then they got shut out 8-0 in PNC Park by Bumgarner and the Giants, and
I
then
was
they lost
there.
4-0 to the Jake Arrieta and the Cubs.
I was there also.
I think both of those games had a grand slam or something.
Yeah.
I think, yep. Brandon
they s-
Crawford killed us, and then Kyle Schwarber.
How are they even still in Pittsburgh?
Now we're going to go into something else. We're going to talk some quick NBA MVPs and how bad the Lakers are doing. So I'll let Danny take over for some Lakers talk.
So the Lakers, I mean, they lost by 30 points to the Pelicans last night.
Yep.
Are you kidding me? You have on paper LeBron James, the greatest player on earth, the greatest player of all time, LeBron James. You have Russell Westbrook, who averages a triple-double. You have Anthony Davis, a former, I mean, he's just incredible. You have 3 top 5 players of this generation. And you're losing to the Pelicans? It's like they don't even try out there. I mean, I saw, I think it was Dwight Howard, throw a pass. He tried to throw a pass down court, and it went, I'm not even kidding, I believe 16 rows up. It wasn't even close to who he was trying to give it to. It's embarrassing. The team chemistry, the team chemistry is absolutely awful. There was videos from the Pelicans game where LeBron, Westbrook, and I believe Trevor Ariza were talking crap to the fans. They were turning around, swearing at the fans. These guys need to be separated immediately. They should have traded Russell Westbrook. He's playing horrible on this team. We saw what he could do on the OKC Thunder when he averaged a triple-double, and he was an MVP.
Yeah.
MVPs just don't fall off like
Yeah.
Russell Westbrook did. It's because he does not fit in on this team. Super teams we're finding out in the NBA are not working. The Nets fell apart. The Lakers are now, people are starting to realize they're falling apart. They don't work. This only super team we have really seen that has succeeded was the Warriors with Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Now, the Lakers, there's not much you can do. LeBron's leaving, 100%. He's not staying with that team. Anthony Davis can't keep himself healthy.
Yeah.
The Lakers, they're horrible. They might not even make the playoffs, which is just insane. When you look at that team on paper, you think they're a lock for the championship. When they signed Russell Westbrook this year, I was like, wow, this league, it's not even going to be close. LeBron's going to be throwing oops to Westbrook and Anthony Davis. I mean, they're just not performing anything like their expectations are. And it's sad to see. It really is. All this wasted talent on the Lakers. It's like a retirement home.
Yeah.
I think the guys on the bench are eating prunes back there and talking about their 401ks. I mean, it's ridiculous. I can't watch the team anymore. I feel bad for LeBron. I feel bad for Russell.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Anthony Davis. Dismember the team. Let's start over again. LeBron, get out of there.
Thinking about it, you would say the Lakers should be really good. Like, you saw those Warriors players on paper, KD, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry. That was like the last really good super team that actually worked. They won all those championships. You look on paper, you see LeBron, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. That team should be in the championship picture, like a #1 seed at least. Where are they? And like, I think it was like the 9 or 10 seed right now. So it's just really bad.
Super teams. I kind of like it though because now I think there's going to be a kind of the GMs are kind of going to realize now super teams aren't really the thing because these players have their own unique play style. You can't mix a LeBron with a Westbrook and an Anthony Davis. It just doesn't work when you have that much star power on a team. The Lakers bench is horrible. Like you said, it's a retirement home. There's guys that are they're practically out there on wheelchairs out there. I don't understand it. If I was the Lakers general manager, I would have moved Russell Westbrook for maybe 2 young players.
Yeah.
But the way Russell Westbrook was playing this year, you really couldn't because he was just playing awful. And I feel like they were going to get, I forget who it was, but I think Buddy Hield they were trying to get. And, I mean, he would make that team a lot better than what Russell Westbrook is. There's not really a lot of shooters on that team.
Yeah.
It's a lot of just ISO ball. You know, LeBron gets the ball, he just dribbles and then drives to the paint, doesn't pass to anyone. That's also Russell Westbrook's game. That is also Anthony Davis's game. You can't have all 3 of them. They have to be able to bounce off each other. We saw that with the Warriors. Kevin Durant was that ISO guy. Pass out Curry. Curry's covered, pass out Klay. If there's not Iguodala can make a shot. I mean, that team, They could just bounce off each other. It was great, and the Lakers just can't do that. They need more young talent because when LeBron leaves, Westbrook leaves, and Anthony Davis leaves, that team is going to be, just horrible.
Yeah.
They have no future. It's sad to see.
Yeah, and whenever we saw LeBron went to the Lakers after he signed there after Cleveland won them a championship, of course. You see them go there, and you're like, okay, LeBron's testing himself. He's going to go out to the West. The Western Conference still had the Warriors, who were really good at the time. But now you look at the Western Conference, it's like a powerhouse.
Yeah,
you have
incredible.
The Utah Jazz, really good basketball team. Denver just had an MVP last year.
The Suns.
Yeah, the Suns, of course, are the new up-and-coming star team. You have Devin Booker, Chris Paul still. I think he's injured now.
Yeah.
But, still a really good player. You have Memphis on the come up with Ja Morant, who's in the MVP race.
Yeah.
Then you see the Eastern Conferences, everyone, even the Cavs are back in it. So do you think LeBron possibly regrets going to LA? Do you think he could have stayed with the Cavs maybe a couple of years?
The Cavs are the perfect NBA team. If you're trying to rebuild a team, look at what Cleveland did.
Yeah.
They have young talent that is going to be there. They play so well together. And Colin Sexton's not even there. And he was their best player last year.
Yeah.
When he comes back, that team's going to be incredible. They're going to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
It's an incredible Cavs team. If LeBron were to go, if I'm the Cleveland's general manager, I wouldn't want LeBron. He would throw off what they have right there. One of those guys would have to go to the bench. LeBron would either have to knock out I forget his name, Karis LeVert. He would either have to knock out LeVert or Jared Allen. But you could always move Jared Allen to the center position, but then you have Evan Mobley. Where are you going to put the rookie of the year, Evan Mobley? You cannot bench him. He's playing incredible. So what you got to do is, if you want to do this, Sexton at point guard. If we're adding LeBron, we go Sexton at point guard, Darius Garland shooting guard, LeBron small forward, Jared Allen power forward, and then Evan Mobley center. That team would be so good. And then you would have Karis LeVert off the bench and an already very, very, very deep Cavaliers bench.
Yeah, and the thing about the Cavs I like this year, I don't know if you can agree, it's just a bunch of guys who aren't particularly stars.
Yeah.
And they're just shocking the league.
Exactly.
So, it just shows you don't need super teams to win. And the Cavs were a basement team last season. The Warriors were a basement team last season. And now they're both number one. And I think the Cavs right now are the number 5 seed, which they are really close to possibly getting that number 1 if they keep winning.
The East is very close.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference is like anyone's ball game right now. But the Cavs are just shocking to me because they have guys. Darius Garland's a player who's been going crazy. I think they had 2 All-Stars this year. I think Allen was the other one. They both got crazy minutes. And it's not just because Cleveland hosted the All-Star game. They earned their spots because the NBA doesn't have that rule where every team has to have a player. The Cavs had 2, which is just crazy because they were nowhere to be found last season. And now look at them. They're just proving everyone wrong, and they could easily be a dark horse to make it a long way in the championship race. So, Joe, you haven't said anything about this in a while, so what do you think about this whole Cavs talk?
Well, unfortunately, I don't watch baseball or basketball that much, but I do know who the Cavaliers are. But I guess going back to the super teams, it was Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steph, and Durant. But there was, and then at one point it was DeMarcus Cousins as well.
Yeah,
he was on there a little bit.
How come those 4 did it, but those 5 didn't?
Yeah.
Was it because of the chemistry, or do you think it was because of something else?
Has to be.
I believe it was the chemistry, and then they lost to one of the greatest teams of this generation, the 2019 Toronto Raptors, my personal favorite team. It was great to see us knock off the Warriors. I love to see that. It wasn't really a matter of, people say that it was because of injuries. Injuries were definitely 100% play on that, but that happens to every single team.
Yeah. We're close to time soon, so we're going to hit up Kyler Murray really quick in this whole situation with the quarterback of Arizona. We saw last week he put out a thing where it's like, not last week, a couple weeks ago, he unfollowed everything Arizona related. Cardinals, all their other city things. If he followed them, he unposted everything Cardinals related. And a lot of people were like, is he gone or is he a guy that could get moved? But he, of course, releases this letter today. So you want to go over some of the things he said.
Today, Kyler Murray shocks the world, releases a letter to the Arizona Cardinals, sends a letter. Basically, what this letter said was, Kyler, I have to read a little bit of my notes right here. Kyler Murray wants an extension. And he put like some demands. It was also like it was kind of weird. It was like a ransom note. He said he wanted a bunch of goals. He said he basically pointed fingers at the Cardinals and said that it's not me, it's you. you guys need to give me a new contract, and I want a new contract. I want to be the guy in Arizona is basically what he said to them. He said that these were his two obligations. He said that he has two very important goals and objectives. Number one, he absolutely wants to be the Arizona Cardinals' long-term quarterback. Number two, he desperately wants to win a Super Bowl, which I think he can. And he also said in that letter that he would be willing to take some of his cap room away to be able to sign some of his teammates, which I think is something that I couldn't see Kyler Murray doing.
Very respectable.
Yeah, he's kind of seemed like a player that is selfish and a finger pointer. There were some reports that came out that the Cardinals actually believe that Kyler Murray is self-centered, immature, and a finger pointer. That's what they said. So after that news broke, his agent released this immature statement about Kyler Murray that just kind of pointed the fingers at the Cardinals. And what are your thoughts on that letter that he sent out?
I think if you're gonna send out that kind of letter and you want all those stuff, you need to be worth it and you need to justify everything. And yes, he was very good in the beginning of the season, going like 8-0 or so, but then completely fell apart at the end of the season and in the playoffs. And I don't think he's been to the playoffs. He should have won against the Rams, I think. And the fact that he just crapped the bed, I don't think he's worth that.
Yeah.
He needs to at least show that he can win a playoff game and that he's not going to choke in the playoffs before he thinks he's worth all that money and worth to be the long-term quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals. With all the quarterbacks coming up in the draft, I really don't think that Kyler is technically the answer. Yes, he is good, but I don't think he's really a franchise quarterback in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Kyler is a franchise quarterback. I think he's what the NFL has become and what NFL are trying to get their quarterbacks to become. I think Kyler's great. I just think they haven't really found their rhythm in these past seasons. I think they are a great team, and I think Kyler does deserve what he wants. It said in this letter that Kyler Murray would like financial protection in line with the top quarterbacks in the NFL. So as well as he's willing to take that cap space away, he also wants to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not sure who the highest paid quarterback is in the NFL at the moment, but he wants to be on par, if not the most paid quarterback in the NFL. And I'm really not sure if he deserves to be that rich.
That's probably Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, definitely. No, nobody should be as rich as Patrick Mahomes because, the Cardinals went and got him players. He got him one of the best receivers in the league. Got him James Conner, which is at least top 15. He's a very powerful back. He really broke out this year with a lot of touchdowns. Got him a great defense. Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, exactly. So they got him players. They got him weapons to choose from. And the fact that he still did not win at least one playoff game does not totally convince me that he is the guy for Arizona.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody say this one before. Sometimes when the guys come out of the draft, there are one or two people, the ones that actually love the game and are playing the game like Tom Brady was, or two, the guys who are just all about the attention, fame, and money, like Jamarcus Russell. Obviously, Kyler Murray is not a Jamarcus Russell because he's done more than in the past 2 years than Russell ever did. But I don't know if he truly loves the game as much as everybody thinks he does.
And you could also bring up the point, did Kyler Murray make the mistake whenever he could have been in the major league? He got picked, I think, it was 6th overall in the MLB draft by the Oakland A's. Do you think he's regretting this decision to pick the NFL over the MLB?
Who's to say he can't do both, honestly?
Yeah,
Deion Sanders, he did both.
Yeah.
He played in the Super Bowl, and then he went to the World Series in the same night. So I think he could do both. I just don't know if that's going to affect his stay in Arizona, though.
Yeah, definitely. And one more final thing before we run out of time here. I just thought of. The problem with the NFL quarterback situations I'm seeing now is teams are just jumping to the conclusion this guy's our quarterback of the future. Yeah. We saw the Browns are currently doing that with Baker Mayfield, which some people think he might not be their quarterback next year. A lot of their fans were like, he's our guy, but now they're just turning their back on him. Franchise QBs, there's not a lot of them. You could only think of a couple. Brady with the Patriots, Big Ben when he was on the Steelers. Patrick Mahomes is, of course, the franchise guy now with Kansas City. But other than that, there's not a lot of current quarterbacks you could say are the legit franchise guys. Besides probably Aaron Rodgers, maybe.
I think in my opinion, if you're going to be viewed as a franchise guy, you need to at least do one or two things. You need to at least A, have a year of throwing over 4,000 yards, or B, win a playoff game. Because the ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If you're just a guy who can just go to the playoffs and completely just choke, you're just an average quarterback. And, you know, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, Brady, Mahomes, all those guys have done those things. Won the playoff game and won a ring. So if you can't at least do something like that, you're not a franchise quarterback. And it is very rare to find a franchise quarterback, especially nowadays.
Yeah, definitely.
And you don't know who you're going to get in the draft because obviously the whole draft process is very tricky.
Yeah, think about the draft too. Anyone can pan out, of course.
Exactly.
So we saw T.J. Watt was picked late first round. Now he's like probably the first pick of the draft talent. And the Steelers somehow picked him up.
Defensive player of the year, of course you will.
Yeah, finally won one. And then you just see these situations like it's just crazy. It baffles me because teams are like, we have to figure it out now. And like you see Jacksonville, they just drafted Trevor Lawrence. He's supposedly going to be their guy. I think he needs to have a better second year, of course.
We think about this though, like, can you imagine all the like talent that came out of the draft that could have been franchise quarterbacks, but just ended up in a very unfortunate situation, like Trevor Lawrence, like David Carr, like so many guys that could have been, but the fact that they got picked by a horrible team, by a horrible coach, by a horrible system.
Yeah, definitely.
And Steve Young, he got picked by the Miami Dolphins. He got traded to the 49ers, became a Hall of Fame quarterback. So I think it's just when you're in a good situation, that's when you can blossom. But when you're in a bad situation, that's when you can really kind of just fall apart.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm worried about Trevor Lawrence. He seems like he has really good talent. I just don't know if he's going to blossom in Jacksonville.
Yeah, definitely. That is sadly all the time we have today for this segment. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Joey, for joining today, talking sports. So we hope you enjoy, and thanks for joining us today.